I'm Rob Skinner, and this is the Rob Skinner Podcast. Today, I'm interviewing Michael and Angela DeAquino. Michael and Angela are longtime Christians who have a passion to prepare parents for the job of raising godly kids. Where others focus on raising troubled teens, rowdy middle school kids, or even elementary age children, Michael and his wife have written a book to prepare parents for child raising before their first child is even born. All this and more on the Rob Skinner Podcast. Welcome back to the Rob Skinner Podcast. My goal is to inspire you to live a no regrets life, make this life count, and multiply disciples, leaders, and churches. I hope you're having an amazing day. I am fired up. I'm loving living in Boston. This is crazy. It's so different than where I was living in Tucson. I live right on the Boston Common, right downtown. I walk everywhere, barely use my car, maybe drive it once a week. We walk everywhere. It's really, really a change of lifestyle and life. We just had a great baptism on Monday night. A young woman from Peru got baptized. She's a graduate student here going into law school named Isabel. It was just so encouraging. And she actually lives in the building next door to us, right on the Boston Common. So it's
Um,
really neat to build this downtown professional ministry. And we are just having such a great time working with Stuart and Ashley Maines and Kevin and Melissa Miller and the elders and the staff here. So another thing I'm so excited about is I just published a new book called The 10X Christian, and I'm really excited about it. I'm getting good feedback, which is great. I'm asking all my friends to please order the book on Amazon and to read it and to review it. And the first one to review it was Chris Schwarzenberger. Thank you, Chris. The second was Tom Newley in Madison, Wisconsin. Thank you, Tom. They gave me some great reviews. So if you haven't ordered that, please order that book, The 10X Christian, How to Multiply Your Faith and Your Legacy. I think it's a great book. I think it's super helpful. And so you can find that on Amazon. That's my third book, and I hope you will read it. Michael and Angela, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having
yeah,
us.
having us.
Yeah, it's great to have you guys on the program, and it's really awesome because we were at the small church leadership conference. I was leaving the hotel. It's down the lobby. I saw this young man sitting in one of the lobby chairs, and he flagged me down. Hey, are you Rob Skinner? I said yes. And then you said, Hey, can you give me a ride? My name's Michael. I want to go to the conference too. And so we carpooled over to the to the church. And you got a chance to just share what you're doing there in this
Mhm.
ministry, and we made a connection, which was really fantastic. But let me just start off. How'd you guys become Christians?
So, it goes way back. I didn't grow up a part of the church, a part of our fellowship, but I had a best friend in fourth grade that invited me to church, and I started going with her on my own. I'd go get dropped off at her house on Sunday, and we go to church. And then as we got older, I would go on and off, and then eventually I started studying the Bible my senior year of high school, and that's when I got baptized.
It took a while. So for about
It
eight
took a
years or
while.
so.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's awesome. Okay, great. Where was that?
That was in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Oh, since okay, great. Terrific.
Yeah.
Michael?
Yeah, so I grew up in Chicago, and my parents actually immigrated here from Brazil. They were trying to make ends meet, and my dad was doing this Amway thing where he was trying to sell products, and he was knocking on a door in our apartment complex. He was just knocking on doors trying to sell his stuff, and he happened to just knock on a door. This is 1990, probably 1991 in Plain. It was in Plainfield, Illinois. Anyways, the group of disciples were having a Bible talk there and invited my dad in. And my parents had been searching for a while, so they were eager to get to know the church and really soon after became Christian. So I was 6 at the time when that happened. So I was able to grow up partly as a kingdom kid in our fellowship. And when I was 14, we kind of lived somewhat far from the church, but my parents did a great job of always connecting us, driving us. They made a lot of sacrifices, and but I had a lot of exposure to the world as well. But I was able to because I was a part of a vibrant teen ministry. I was able to see just what the life of a Christian looked like and how the world just paled in comparison with a life of a disciple. And so I was able to make that decision at 14 to get baptized. And yeah, that's where I became a Christian.
Okay, fantastic. So how old are you guys? Like, give me a rough idea.
I'm 36.
And I'm 40.
Michael just turned 40 this year.
Yeah.
Okay, that's great. You're just
Said
entering your
young man
prime.
earlier. And I was like, oh, thanks, Rob.
40 to 60 prime years. You just these are the best years. You got a
That's
Started.
lot to
right.
look forward to.
Just getting started.
Absolutely. Okay, so how'd you guys meet? How'd you guys get married?
Well, funny story. I actually was, before I became a disciple, was invited to a retreat,
Campus Street, yeah.
campus retreat, like my junior year of high school. That's where I first met Michael. But little did I know, 2 years later, right after I became a disciple, he was hired as my campus minister. And I was a young disciple and I didn't know how relationships worked, as a Christian. And I liked him. He was spiritual and handsome. And I just told him when I was 18, I really like you and I think we should date.
Yeah.
And
Direct
he was
approach.
like, "Did you get advice about this?" And I was like, "What do you mean?"
I think her words were, I like you. I'm pretty
I'm
sure
pretty
you
sure you
like
like
me.
me.
When should we start dating?
Yeah.
That was kind of
The rest is history. God took care of it.
probably not something we would advise people necessarily, but it was definitely direct.
Yeah.
Well, great. So you guys, I guess you started dating at that point.
Well, it was a little bit later. It was probably
Okay,
almost a year later, but then we dated throughout my college and then got married right at the end of me graduating.
awesome. Okay, great. So what year did you guys get married?
2011.
11. Okay, you guys have been married
Almost 15
almost
years
almost 15
next
years.
year.
And how many
Yeah.
kids do you guys have?
5 kids.
Oh my gosh. Was that intentional?
We did one at a time. So the first
No, no twins or anything like that.
No, but the first one, so I was pretty young when we got married. I was 21, and we were not planning to have kids right away, but I got pregnant when I was 22. So we
Yeah.
had kids right away, and then because of that, we kind of had a lot of space. Like I felt like I had a lot of years of like making the decision if I wanted to continue. So we just took it one at a time, and here we are with 5.
Okay, so give me what are the ages of your kids and what sex?
So we have 1 boy and 4 girls.
Okay.
Our boy is our oldest, and he's almost 13. And then we have a 10-year-old girl, almost 8-year-old girl, a 5-year-old girl, and a 2-year-old girl.
My gosh. And plans
Girls.
for more?
Only the Lord knows.
Only the Lord knows.
We always say we're open, but not hoping.
So it's a possibility. It's a possibility. That's awesome.
It's a
Hey, I
possibility.
encourage people have tons and tons of kids. I mean, I told my
It's a dream.
kids, I know this is a little, I told on vacation last summer, I said, guys, listen, I've got 3 kids. I told each one, I said, I want 6 kids from each one of you. Okay.
Yes.
I want 18. My dad in his generation, his brothers, they had 18 kids between the 3 of the brothers. And I just hope those kids just have a ton of them. I told them I want
Yes.
so many kids
It's a
that,
joy.
you know, I want there to be name confusion where, I can't remember their names. It's like, now was it
Sure,
Jack
yeah.
or John or was it Jill or Joyce? What was it? I hope so. They better get busy. Anyway, okay, back to you guys. So, give me an overview of where you guys have been since that time you guys got married, 2011.
Well, we were in Cincinnati, did campus ministry there, young professional ministry there. And then in 2018, we took a job out here in Denver to do youth and family ministry. So those are the only places we've been since we've been married.
Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah. Yeah.
Cincinnati and then Denver.
Yep.
Yeah, that was Angela. Obviously, I grew up in the Chicago church. I graduated high school in 2003, which is an important time in our fellowship. Went to a campus ministry in Champaign, Illinois, for a couple years, but really wanted to do ministry. I had a friend who I had helped become a Christian in high school, who had gone to Harding. He had a Church of Christ background, so I went and visited him my sophomore year and was like, "Wait a second, you're telling me I can get a degree in Bible?" And so I decided to transfer everything over and move to Searcy, Arkansas, and did my degree at Harding, and then moved to Cincinnati. That's where I met Angela. And then, yeah, we came to Denver to do the youth and family ministry position in 2018.
Okay. But you're not in the ministry now. Why'd you step out of the ministry?
So this was definitely a difficult decision because we really enjoyed our time in the ministry. Obviously, I have a lot of children, and I felt like such a pull when they started going into school and elementary school. This feeling of, man, I wish I had more time with them. And, youth ministry, most of the people I was working with were available after school when I would pick up my own children. And I felt that tug in my heart. And I just felt like I can't do this anymore, Michael. Like, I just feel like my heart is telling me I need to be with the kids. And so, the only way for that to really happen is for us to both step out. And I wanted to homeschool the children. So it's kind of a huge life altering change of we
Mm.
only knew ministry
Yeah, right.
to I'm not going to work anymore and I'm going to homeschool our children to Michael becoming a real estate agent. So, but I feel like God's blessed us so much. Like I feel so much like it's where I'm supposed to be.
Sounds like a wise decision. It sounds familiar too. I got out of the ministry and stepped into real estate back in 2004. It was exciting for a while, and then we had the
Mhm.
market crash. But sounds like you're just killing it in real estate from what you shared with me before. Sounds like things are going great.
Yeah, I mean, it was one of those things that I felt like God just put me in the right brokerage. So the brokerage firm that I'm a part of, they actually give me leads. I don't have to spend any money up front. I just have to pay for them, when we close. And so the pipeline is just constant. And so there are a lot of warm leads that I just basically have to convert into buyers and sellers. So it's, God's really blessed it a
Yeah.
lot.
That's great.
Really. So I would
Congratulations.
say,
It's go ahead.
well, yeah. Well, I think when you sent me that question, we were wrestling with the question, of course, and I think to why we stepped out of ministry, my answer would be I don't think we ever really stepped out of
Yeah,
ministry.
that's true.
We stepped out of paid ministry is how we'd answer that because we definitely have a passion for helping people, getting them to heaven, multiplying leaders in churches, just like you. So yeah, we're still doing ministry. We're just not getting paid for it.
Right, right. That's awesome. That's an important distinction. Okay. So you're doing real estate, you're raising your kids, 5 kids. Boy, that's a lot right there. What got you interested in coaching others in parenting? I mean, that's kind of obviously you got a lot of kids, but a lot of people have kids and they never think about
Right.
writing a book.
Yeah. Yeah. You wanted to answer that?
Well, being in the ministry, it definitely opens your eyes up in a lot of ways to family. We worked with families. I mean, we did campus ministry and working with the families as they were transitioning into campus, but then we went to youth and family and we're working with families there. And it kind of like pulls back the curtain a little bit of like where families feel like they are struggling. And then we're raising young children ourselves. And I think our heart just went out to parents. But what we recognize in our own demographic, like the people who are our age, it's so easy with social media to have the first instinct to Google or go to Instagram or whatever the platform is to figure out how to parent your child through these different social means. And we also felt like there was this missing piece where the younger families, there's not a lot there, being fed to them. And so we're like, gosh, our heart is for them because if they can be captured at a young age, then they're like on the right stepping stones as they grow their children in faith.
Obviously, with campus ministry, we were seeing, we did that for 11 years. I mean, year after year, Kingdom kids coming in from our high schools around the Ohio Valley churches. And, we obviously saw the challenges that these people were facing, these young Christians or these college students who grew up in our church, just with having deep, lasting faith. And so I think the main reason why we considered coming to Denver was to do teen ministry so that we can help these teens earlier on so that they can get to campus and flourish. That was our thought process. And so it was kind of like, what if we got to these kids a lot younger? And so obviously what ended up happening is when we got to high school, we realized we still need to get to them younger. And so that's kind of what ended up happening with us. And, obviously we're trying to help young parents. I want to make a disclaimer. I think that it's important. In no way do Angela and I, we're not positioning ourselves as experts. Like we don't feel like we're this like qualified couple to really speak on all this, but we definitely feel called. And I think that's what's driving us, because we feel like this is a ministry. Because when you consider, I guess, our fellowship of churches, I mean, we do a great job with pumping resources into our teen ministry, our college ministry. A lot of times people have campus ministries. We have a lot of resources going towards our children's ministry. But when it comes to the young parents, and I don't say that with a critical heart either. It's more of a critique that we see an undeveloped, group of people that need help, and we just wanted to help them.
Okay, I've heard about like coaching, you know, I've heard about coaching like parents of teens, and there's books by Doug Jacoby, there's books by Sam Lang on, raising awesome kids in troubled times, things like
Mhm.
that. Of course, there's books by, Chuck Swindoll, and I mean Gary Chapman. There's tons of parenting books, but I've never heard of a book or coaching pre-parenting. I mean, like pre-birth coaching.
Right.
How did you come up with that idea? Like that's just totally unique.
Yeah, exactly. As I said just a few minutes ago, I mean, when we started to think about, it kept on asking the question, what if we got to them earlier? And when we talked about, when we were them being the kids, but then we started realizing like, well, we're not going to minister directly to a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old. We have to, directly minister to the parents. But then I was sitting here one day, I was like, do we do pre-parental counseling? And so I literally just started going around, and
Searching.
I was like, well, first I went to just different people, and I'm like, we probably do. I just didn't hear about it. And I've probably at this point asked thousands of people, just like, hey, did you guys do pre-marital counseling? And people would be like, yeah, of course. Like, we needed the tools. We never been there before. We got with a couple. They went through a curriculum. I was like, okay, yeah, okay, but how about pre-parental counseling? And you could just see in their eyes, they're like, that does that even exist? And I just over time, just over and over, I was like, okay, this is something that we needed to start doing. We
Yeah.
need to get parents before, because this is a point in time where I would say most people would say they are, they kind of have a freak out moment. Like at least I did when I found out that I was going to have a kid. It was like, oh, am I even ready for this? And so there's this kind
Exactly.
of felt need. And then I also think that they aren't in the they're not over, they don't have a
They're
lot
not
going
in
on.
the
They're not in the
thick.
thick of it yet. So it's like, what if we got to them before they got into the thick of changing diapers and sleep deprivation and decision fatigue, all those things? What if we got to them before that?
And their hearts are captured, their minds are captured, so that they know going into it what's my vision for my family? How do I want to raise my kids? Not just, of course, I want them to be Christians, or of course, I'm going to bring them to church, but like having deeper and more intentional ideas of how they want to implement that in their family. And then also, when you have an infant, some people just feel like they're drowning, and then finally they start sleeping again, and they have a toddler, and then they end up pregnant again. So then they're like, they have a hard time envisioning, well, how do I do this? I'm just so tired, you know?
I see. So it's kind of like giving people a chance to like draw a blueprint or like a
Yes,
architectural,
exactly.
like an idea of, okay, this is what it's going to be. Can Now you guys have written a book. What's the name of the book that you've written?
Yeah, the book is called The Parenthood Primer, and the subheading is a pre-parental counseling workbook for expecting Christian couples.
Okay, great. So it's pretty specific. It's geared towards Christians, and it's a niche before people even have kids. Okay,
Hmm.
so can you give an overview? Just what give me like the five nuggets from the book that are the most important. Like what are you trying to convey to people? Give me five bullet points that you're trying to instill in people who want to have kids and they want to get ready.
Yeah, yeah, good question. So obviously, again, just like you guys just said, I mean, it's really creating space and time to have discussions prior to the chaos, right? And so things like learning from your parents' parenting, like just taking time to think about what are some of the things that we want to bring with us, and what are some of the things that we don't, and so it's really, um, you know, eating the fish and spitting out the bones kind of thing. So
Yeah.
I think that's an important thing,
Definitely.
I think another thing is just embracing parenthood. I think a lot of times, and this is something I struggle with, was just because I was in the middle of I mean, our campus ministry had just tripled in size when my first was born. And I was embracing ministry in my career more than I did my role as a father. And so just really getting people to understand, because I think especially men find themselves, it's very difficult for them to embrace the role of a father. It doesn't really give a lot of results right away, and so it can be easy to point our hearts towards other things. So that's another thing. We really hit on that marriage is so important. If you don't have a strong marriage, it's going to be really hard to be great parents. And what we find is that a lot of times, fast forward, people who have kids, they start prioritizing the kids over their spouses. And so we're really just trying to reinforce that again, just the importance of having a strong marriage. So those are some of the things that we talk about. I think that one last key thing that we really hit is that faith has to begin with the parents. And it really is calling parents to assess and evaluate where their walk with God is, and what things they need to repent in, what things they need to change before their kid comes. But also putting on a really strong responsibility that parents, you are the disciple makers of your kids. You
Right.
are the pastors of your home. If the environment in your home, it really doesn't, I mean, you can have a thriving church, a thriving teen ministry, but if the home isn't a spiritual place, and not just like watching their parents read the Bible, I think those are important things. And not just coming to church, I think that's an important, but is the atmosphere and the culture in the home spiritual? And so that's a big thing that we talk about. You got to buy the book to read the rest, but yeah.
Oh, yeah. No, it sounds good. To all those anxious parents out there that are just, having kids and they're like, "Oh my gosh, am I doing this right?" What encouragement would you give them? Okay, what would you say to people that are just really anxious about their parenting?
Well, I do think what's interesting is I feel like with our journey as parents, we felt we kind of the things that we're talking about here, we started late to the game. And I think when you decide, like, okay, I just have to start somewhere and be consistent in maybe small things and grow as we grow and mature and our children grow, that your relationship, and even when you mess up, things can be restored and you can move forward in a
Right.
different trajectory. Because there's been so many times when I'm like, I screwed up, or like, we
Totally.
spent the first 5 years of our son's life so focused on ministry and not focused on our parenting journey and passing on our faith. But I look at him now and I'm like, God is so redeeming in so many ways to our children that we need to repent in a lot of ways. We need to change. And there will be
Right.
seasons of life that are hard and seasons of life where we feel like we can't give much, but starting somewhere and then building over time
Okay,
has
that's
been
good.
helpful for me.
It's never too late to turn things around. You guys have been in youth and family ministry a long time. You've seen a lot, seen behind the scenes, behind the curtain about what's happening with families. What are the two or three most common mistakes you see Christian parents making with their kids?
So I think you could probably explain this better. There's kind of like this quadrant. We talk about it in our book of like where you want to shoot for is high relationship, high expectation. And sometimes parents can get like, how can I have high expectations on my kids? Like they'll get burnt out or they'll get exasperated. But parents have to have a high relationship with their children. You can't have low relationship, high expectation, or high relationship, low expectation. You really got to shoot for the high relationship, high expectation. And we felt like when a parent didn't have a relationship with their kid, there was broken trust. That's where we felt like it was really hard for the kid to want to absorb the faith of their parents.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think part of that goes along with what I was going to say, which is I think we live in a very highly segregated, where a lot of, when you think about Deuteronomy 6, and I actually went back and listened to one of your old podcasts a few years ago. I think you and Pam were talking about this parenting and marriage. I forget, rock solid marriages, I think it was.
Right, right.
And but Deuteronomy
Thank
6,
you.
the idea there is, walk along with your kid when you rise, when you get up, when you walk along the road. It almost seems like the kids are with the parents a lot, and
Yeah.
I think what happens is that we do a lot of outsourcing in general in our culture, where our kids are getting taught by other people. they're going to sports and being coached by other people. There's just things that it's just there's an outsource, and what that I think does is it erodes a little bit of that relationship because there's not a lot of integration. So really, I mean, time spent with parents is parents' time with kids is so important. 15 minutes a day is not going to cut it where they have quality. Even, obviously just because you have quantity doesn't mean it's quality either. So you have to really consider both.
Yeah.
So I think those are things that we would say.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's very good. One thing that I see today a lot that just makes me kind of scratch my head is I see parents who are very child-centered. To me, they're not very Christ-centered. As an example, like, they set their kids up with a schedule, put their kids to bed at 6:30, and they are so disciplined about it. Their kids have a super militaristic bedtime. They get tons of sleep. They don't go to midweek. The parents don't go to midweek. The kids don't grow up going to midweek. And another example is the parents are raising their kids to get involved in competitive sports and have dreams for their kids to become soccer players or tennis stars or some other area, and that becomes the priority over church, and the parents themselves become very loosely connected to their local church because they're constantly on the road doing traveling and on a traveling team or something like that. And there's a growing practice, but also an acceptance of this kind of child-centered parenting. Can you comment on that? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Absolutely. I feel like you hit it on the head. That is something, and I think what's unique to us is a lot of our peers, because we had kids so young and early on, our peers started having kids when we had our third or fourth kid. And so we didn't really subscribe to that, which I think a lot of our peers do subscribe to. I think one, there's a lot of fear based in that lifestyle. There's just like you said, it's not like coming from a heart of faith or trust in God, or I do think there's a lot of parenting out of fear, or I gotta my kid's schedule, or and there's a desperation because a lot of that comes out of like this is the only way I'm going to sleep or I'm going to get my time, or instead of like looking at it from a bird's eye point of view. I think it's really hard for parents to do that, and just like people I don't think have realized how much they've conformed to the world with I want to get my kid. I'm like very few of your children are going to make it to becoming a real basketball player. But it's also sad because it's like you can gain the whole world and let forfeit your soul, and I think that's what we're
Heard that
instilling
before.
in our kids. Yeah, like we're instilling in our kids like gain the world, and they're not focused on what about my kid's soul. And so we actually personally have a lot of personal convictions about sports in our family and time away from our family unit, and I think we kind of are looked at as like, you guys do things different. And I don't always think it's in a good way. I think sometimes people feel like confused by some of our choices, but it's because we've seen what it's done. Like we've had the lens of being in the youth ministry and seeing what these teens are choosing or these families and
Yeah.
I just had an appointment with a couple, and they just poured out their lives. I mean, really made sacrifices, big time, monetary sacrifice, time sacrifices for their kids to succeed in sports. And now, they miss tons of church. I mean, not that going to church alone is the only indicator, but that pursuit of success in sports became like priority for sure. And now that one of the kids just not interested in church at all. I mean, it does come home to roost. I mean, there's the you
yes.
reap what you sow, and it's hard because that these parents, they love their kids, they love God, but they're reaping some bitter fruits. It's very painful to watch.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit, obviously, you do have to be careful. I think we have to be careful of not to idolize family or idolize our
Right.
children. I think, this generation is probably swinging the pendulum from the generation before.
Sure.
And I think sometimes that's
Right.
every generation does that, it seems. I
Yeah.
think the idea, again, going back to why we're trying to get to the younger parents, even parents before they become parents, is because we want them to be intentional with the way that they decide to raise their kids and raise their family. And I think the idea of being intentional is sort of like stepping back and asking the question, is this really profitable? Is this really
Yeah.
beneficial? Is this really going to get us to where we want to be. Stephen Covey, in his book, The Habits of a Highly Effective Family, talks about having a vision and kind of like a pilot, you have to have a
Right.
destination. How are you going to
Right.
get there? And I just think, when we sat down and we do this every year, we go out for 3, 4 days each year. We do what we call a family summit at the end of every year, and we just talk about what God has done in the past year and then what we're doing going forward, and is it aligning with the vision that we have agreed to and the values that we've agreed to as a family. And I think that intentionality has allowed us to not get so swayed and so
Hmm.
like kind of like what the scriptures say, tossed back and forth by the waves. It's like that idea of staying true to who we the family that we want to build, which is a godly family. And so I think that's helps a lot. That's why we're trying to get to
Great.
parents younger.
Great point. I mean, I love that book, by the way. And he does talk about begin with the end in mind. Start with the end in mind. You've got to have an idea of where you want to take your life or your family before you get started. And that's sounds like you guys are starting as early as you possibly can. So that's
Yeah.
I think that's brilliant.
It's chapter
Now let's
4 in
talk
the
a
book.
little bit about this book and this ministry. How like what's it look like to what are you shooting for? Like how are you going to know that you've really accomplished your purpose? Like what has to happen for you to go, man, this is exactly what we hoped would happen.
Yeah, I mean, our hope is that we start building stronger and healthier families, because we absolutely feel certain that healthy families, strong families, are going to end up becoming strong churches, and strong
Right.
churches are going to help build strong communities and neighborhoods. And I absolutely feel like there's a lot of things that we think that this will do short term, but also long term.
Long
I
term.
think on the short term, you're going to have when a young parent is being equipped and engaged and supported and seen, they're going to feel a lot more ownership of the church that they're a part of. And I think that's something that again, typically, if you follow the generational cycle of a disciple, if they got baptized in the teen ministry and they go to the campus and they go to young professionals and they go to young marrieds, once they have a kid, they get kind of put into the marrieds ministry, and it's almost like where do those people go? But if there was and so what we're also building, we're not only the pre-parental counseling is one aspect of our ministry. Our ministry is called the Parenthood Project. It's a ministry that's aiming to equip parents and churches to build strong foundations. And so we're trying to help churches build out young parent ministries. And so those people can feel like they have a home, a place where they're getting equipped and supported. So I think that short-term benefit of them staying in a church that they feel seen and supported is important. I also think that there's not a lot of churches, even in the evangelical churches, that are doing this. I've met with many churches outside of our fellowship, and you just go to the website and you click ministry, and you go and the drop down, it's like, what ministries do they have? And there's not a lot of churches who have parenting ministries. And so if as a church, our fellowship, we have an opportunity here to say we have a place for
Right.
and even preparental counseling, like you're at the park and all of a sudden you see a pregnant woman, make sure you know that she's pregnant, obviously. um, Maybe ask your wife first, but go up and say, "Hey, have you done preparental counseling?" And nobody has done it, so they're like, "What is that?" And you're like, "We have one. We're
Yeah.
having a series of classes, or things of that nature." I just think it's a great opportunity for churches to capitalize on this time period that a lot of people, um, if you think about it, I think there's three moments in a person's life that they find that they kind of start to consider coming back to the faith. There's, and the three key moments that I say is college, children, and then close to death experience. So those are the three, and we do a great job with our college students, right? Like we pour a lot of, and we need to continue to do that. But children, when people have children, they start to think about coming back to the church, and what if
Right.
our fellowship has a place for them? That's so. Anyways,
That's a great point.
I just feel like that's the short term. Long term, you think about a lot of these. You mentioned a couple that you were just reaching out to, and we've seen throughout the years when a couple are empty nesters and their kids are not faithful, you almost see like they just kind of feel deflated. They're there, they come, because they're committed, but have a hard time really believing in this in the church and believing in what is being said. You know, if you flip the script and you see, all of a sudden you have a whole bunch of people whose kids are faithful and they have a great relationship. Imagine long term what that would do to churches, more elders. I think
Mhm.
there's going to be more church plantings that people are going to have because you're going to have such a
Awesome.
strong, mature church that people can start to go plant churches elsewhere. So, anyways, those are, yeah,
Yeah, I would say the reality though is that this is the slow game. Like this is a long-term vision,
Sure. Yeah.
and that can be hard to capture like in
Right.
people's minds because it's not like we're working with the teens and they're studying the Bible, and it's like we're working with people right before they have kids, placing these, values and tools in them so that they can put their children on the right path and continue to plant these seeds so that in 15 plus years,
Right.
their kid might make that choice themselves. So it's a long game, but we feel like it's so necessary to plant so much in parents early on so that they don't come when they're parents of teenagers and they're desperate and they're scared and they're, you know what I mean? And I'm not a parent of a teen yet, like my son's almost 13, and I don't know how it's going to work out for my kids, but the way I feel is I'm just trying to give my kids the best opportunity with the knowledge I know from scripture and taking ownership of my role.
Yeah. I think that's so wise. I mean, you're right. You can't control it. And there are many, many wonderful parents whose kids they don't follow God. And that's God's election. That's God's choice. It's complicated. It has to
Right,
do with the person has to choose, and God has to choose that person. So
right.
it's a mystery for sure. But I agree. I think what you're saying is you want to know in your heart that you did everything you could
Yes.
do to give your
Right.
kids every chance to follow God. And I think that's so wise, and it's a long-term project. So very, very good.
yeah.
Okay. So what you're saying is beyond just a book, you've got a ministry going on for if a person were leading a ministry or they're in the paid ministry and they're looking for resources, what else do you offer besides the book?
Yeah, so like currently right now we're actually working with 13 churches where we are helping them establish this young parents ministry. And so the reality is we have some classes that we do with churches to just kind of walk the path that we walked, that we started a year and a half ago when we started our first young parents ministry here in Denver. And so it's really, again, just trying to equip these church leaders or church volunteers to, and I think we've made a lot of progress in our fellowship. You know, when we used to just be a teen ministry model, then we transitioned into a youth and family ministry model. And a lot of that was, hey, let's focus on, we got to bring the parents in.
Right.
Obviously that only brought in, much of the focus was on this parents of teens, and then we started this like cradle to campus model, which is really starting with this having a comprehensive look at it. And we're trying to help build is really focusing, helping churches build out that cradle to campus, really spending more time focusing on the parents, the young parents, and so developing a ministry for that.
Okay. So if someone were interested in finding out more, where would they where
Yeah, so we have a nonprofit ministry called the Parenthood Project. And so if they went to theparenthoodproject.com, they would find our website. It's still being built. It's very beginning stages, but we have a lot of resources that we are going to be developing to assist churches in this regard.
And for individuals, we also offer like a package for individuals who want, if they want to take the course and they want to do like counseling with us, or there's different options that they can choose from on the website as well.
how important is that? I mean, just to take care of your kids, take care of the future. Let me close by asking you this question. What advice would you give to those who want to make their life count?
I think we're trying to help people understand that to make this life count, you have to think about making your future generations life count.
Mm,
You have to consider the lives and the lively and the faith of the future of your descendants. There's this man in the Bible that it's like you hear about Abraham, you hear about all these different people, But there's this
Right.
guy that I just never heard about until a couple years ago, and his name is Jonadab. And Jonadab is only briefly mentioned twice in the Bible. The first time was in 2 Kings, I think chapter 10. Jehu's the king at the time, and Jehu's trying to eradicate the Baal worshippers. And Jonadab finds out about it. He's like, I want in. And they go and just like completely slaughter all these Baal worshippers. And then you don't hear about Jonadab for like until Jeremiah 35, which is essentially 8 generations later, 250 years later. And now the southern kingdom is having the same issues that the northern kingdom had, where they were starting to get into idol worship. And God actually invites all these families into the temple, and he says, Jeremiah, offer wine to the Rakabite family, which is the descendants of Jonadab, and they're going to pour wine to this family, and they're like, wait, we don't drink wine. And they're like, yeah, our ancestor Jonadab told us not to drink wine, not to plant vineyards, not to live in homes, but to live in tents, and all these kind of like weird rules. Basically, they're like, we've honored his vision for these 8 generations. God was like, Jeremiah, point out this family to all the families in the southern kingdom, because you guys can't be faithful to me for 1 generation. Look at this family who's faithful for 8 generations. And I think about, man, what if I'm doing something right now that 8 generations from now, my family descendants are faithful? That to me is making my life count, knowing that I'm putting things in places so that 8 generations, 5 generations, four, whatever, are still faithful. That's what makes my life count.
Michael and Angela, thank you so much for joining the program. All the best to you in your ministry, your new book coming out. I think it's fantastic what you're doing. I think it's a huge need. And, people are just wanting, I think what you said at the beginning, Angela, they're scrambling for information, but they may not be going to the right sources. Just because you find it online doesn't mean it's authoritative or wise to pursue it.
Right.
I think exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. Thank you for
I'm sorry,
having
what were
Yeah.
you going to say? Yeah, absolutely. My pleasure. Thank you. And thank you for listening. Here's how you can help the program. First of all, read my new book. It just came out, The 10X Christian. You can find it on Amazon. I hope you love it. And please, if you do read it, give me a review. Give me an honest review and let me know what you think. I'm really excited to promote this new book. I think it's going to really help people to grow and to bring back to Jesus 10 times what we've been gifted. And that's really the theme of the whole book. So thank you so much for listening, because my goal is to inspire you to make this life count, live a no regrets life, and multiply disciples, leaders, and churches. Have a great day and make this life count.